Hello everyone, it's Angela. Today I'm going to do a 45-minute beginner or gentle class. It's great if you're just starting out with yoga and you're new to it. It's also a great class if you're recovering from an illness or an injury perhaps, or you're just having a rest day and you want some gentle movement. It's a great class just to reconnect with your body and your breath, and you can do a lot of the poses and postures using a chair, kind of like the one I have here. You can do some stuff seated in the chair, like the stuff we're doing when we're sitting down. You can also use the chair for support. So you open the chair, use the back of the chair to rest your hands on in some of our standing poses. I will at some point be doing a chair yoga class to put out for you, but for now, this is just our beginner. And as always, consult with a doctor before you start any exercise program. Maybe you want to watch it first before deciding if you want to do it. Maybe you just do some of it and then come back to it again another day and gradually build. So completely up to you, and you might want to have some props with you. So a strap, you can also use a belt or like the belt from a robe or something, just something long so you can use it to extend, to lengthen your body, and some eggs or a couple blocks. Typically you can find yoga blocks, even in Winners, Canadian Tire, those kind of stores, and they just give us a little bit of support and sometimes actually help us lengthen the body so we can get a better stretch in a safer manner. So we're going to get started. If at any point when we're sitting, if you want to be sitting on a blanket or a folded up towel, sometimes it's nice to have the hips lifted up a little bit. It just takes pressure off the knee joints when we're sitting in a position like this. You can sit crisscross applesauce. You can have legs extended here if you like, whatever you're comfortable with, that you can sit with for about, 5 minutes we might be here. So I'm just going to get you to find your seated position. And when you get there, find your sits bones, those two little bones that we rest on while we're sitting. And then find that space about 2 centimeters below your belly button and draw it in, and you'll instantly notice that you sit up taller. And I call that doing up our zipper. So what that is our Uddiyana Bandha, our support for our core, and it helps to keep the back nice and safe and protect it in any of our movements. And then just allow yourself to grow a little bit right through the crown of the head. Shoulders can just gently glide down the back, and maybe you want to do a few little shoulder rolls, both shoulders at the same time, maybe one at a time, up to you. And then just come to a place where you find your tallest self. Hands can be anywhere, don't worry about the hands. I just have mine tucked in right now. And then just start to find your breath. Feel free to close your eyes here if you like. I'm going to talk you through the whole thing. And just notice your breath, coming and going, in and out. Notice how you're breathing. So in yoga, we typically breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. It warms our breath, helps us move with efficiency. But if you're not able to do that, just make sure you're breathing, especially if we're recovering from perhaps a cold or something. And as we continue to breathe here, just notice where the breath goes. So typically we inhale through the nose, the breath passes down the throat, through the chest, upper ribs, and then lower ribs. So that's our 3-part breath. And I want you to just notice the breath coming. And as we inhale, it passes through chest, upper ribs, lower ribs, and then releases the same way. Notice that a few times, the breath coming in and coming out. Let's take a couple more here. And then just start to notice inhaling, filling the low part of the ribs first, then upper ribs, then chest, and then release. So just shift your awareness a little bit. It's still a 3-part breath. We're just bringing in the diaphragm. So the diaphragm lifts the rib cage so that we can expand the lungs as we take in our breath. And that's a full deep breath. So it engages our parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and digest system, and helps to calm us down. And you can come to this place, just this place, anytime, and you're still doing yoga. So take a few more breaths here. As you're breathing, just know that as we get moving, we try to connect our movement and our breath. Inhaling and exhaling as we move through our poses and postures. And as we hold our postures, we continue to let the breath flow. So just connecting our body and our breath. Finish out one more breath here. And then hands wherever you're comfortable with them, thighs, knees, beside you, from the hips. We're just going to start to do some Sufi rolls. So just turning one direction and just starting to notice how the body moves. Just being aware of maybe how big your circles are, where you feel it, maybe how much the shoulders are moving, maybe how much the hips or the sits bones are moving. And it might be a small, tiny circle today, and maybe we get a little bit bigger and get a little more shoulder into it. Maybe we actually start to lift the knees a little bit and lift the hips. So listen to your body. That's your choice, how big you make that. It's just starting to connect with movement. And then whenever you're ready, just changing direction. And again, notice if it feels different from one direction to the other. It might not. It's just becoming aware of how our body moves in space, how it feels. You might notice mine looks different moving each direction. So finish a breath here. Make your way back to sitting nice and tall. And then just pause. Just check in with your breath again. Drawing shoulders down. Let's bring our hands to our knees if they're not already there. And just take 2 or 3 big breaths here. The next time we inhale, let's open up the chest, arch a little bit, lift up through throat, lift up chin in our seated cow pose. And then exhale, we round the back a little bit, tuck in the shoulders, tuck in the chin in our seated cat pose. So we're just going to flow this, inhaling to open up the front, exhaling to open up the back. And again, just noticing how our body moves, where we feel it. Everybody's different, but it's just an exercise in self-awareness. So notice how much space we can create in the front body and the back body as we breathe and move here. And through all these poses, especially when we're flowing like this, feel free to close your eyes if you like. Maybe it'll help connect to your body a little bit more. Maybe it'll become a little bit meditative or mindful. Just going with our flow. Let's finish out 2 more. When we're done those 2, just coming back to a seated position and pausing again, finding our tallest self. We do that zipper up, support our spine while we're seated here. And again, just 2 or 3 breaths. In through nose, out through nose if we can. Finding that deep 3-part breath. Feeling expansion in low ribs, upper ribs, and chest. And after we finish our next breath, we're just going to come forward and come onto all fours. So you might have to shift where you are on the mat like I just did. And we want to find our wrists underneath our shoulders and our knees underneath our hips. And that's called stacking the joints. I'm going to talk a lot about that in each of our poses. And it keeps our joints, keeps our bodies safe. So we want to press the fingers down. We want to press the palms down so we're not rocking onto the wrist. You can see hopefully that my fingers are lifted a little bit here. That's rocking onto my wrists. It was a little bit of an extreme example, but I wanted to show you. So we spread the fingers so we have a nice support. We have that connection to the earth and that supporting posture. Same thing with our shins. Toes can curl if we like, feet can be flat, doesn't matter. We can also make fists for wrists here if we have issues with our wrists. I've broken mine, sometimes they get cranky, so sometimes I like to explore that as well. And we're gonna do the same thing that we did while we were seated. So inhale, we're gonna arch a little bit, we're gonna take a look up, open chest, open throat. And then exhale, we're gonna tuck in the chin around the back. So we're flowing our cow and our cat again. Just moving with your own breath, your own pace. Notice where we find movement. Notice where we find space. Checking in with that belly brace. So making sure we're not pushing the belly down, but we're supporting our spine as we move here. Always taking care of our back. So let's finish out 1 more of each of those. And then we're going to make our way to what I call resting pose. You might hear it called child's pose. Because I teach trauma-sensitive yoga, I just call it resting pose. So we can sink back towards the hips. We can send the arms long and rest the forehead on the mat, but we can also stack the hands or stack the fists to rest the forehead on. We can take the knees wider here if that's more comfortable. We can rock in the hips a little bit. We can rock the forehead a little bit if we like. If that's not comfortable for knees or hips, we also have the option of staying up a little bit higher, where we come onto the forearms, keep the hips lifted. This is called puppy dog pose. So this is also an option to our resting pose. And you can also rock a little bit side to side here if that feels good. And any time you are doing yoga, whether it's this class or any other class, you can always come back to this pose to rest, and then just join in when you're ready. So let's take one more breath here. I'm going to come from resting pose. We're going to send the arms out as far as they go. We're going to pick up the head. We're going to shift forward, coming to our kneeling plank. We want to keep the elbows close into the body to keep the elbows safe, and we're going to lower all the way down to the mat. And then we're going to come onto our forearms slightly outside our shoulders. We want to find some length in the back. I call it a little scooch. And then we're just going to lift to a gentle back bend. This is called Sphinx pose. So just drawing shoulders down, creating some space in the throat as we gaze forward. Eyes can open or close here. Let's take a couple or a few breaths. In through nose, out through nose if we can. Softening the jaw, softening cheekbones, softening the eyes, whether they're open or closed. And after we finish our last breath here, on the next inhale, we're going to lower down, slide the hands underneath the shoulders, exhale, push back to that resting pose again. And just take a breath or two there. Finding length in the back. Now with our arms fully extended, I'm just going to move on the mat because I'm towards the back. With our arms fully extended, we're going to start to lift the head, curl the toes, spread fingers, and find downward facing dog. So it's an upside down letter V. We spread the fingers, push against the floor, stretch the back as the hips shift backwards a little bit, and then we press the heels down. Heels may or may not touch the floor. This is a big stretch for the back body. So we can bend the knees a little bit here if that's more comfortable for the hamstrings. We want the arms to be long and strong, but the elbows soft, and the head's just framed between the arms. So we're thinking about bringing our rib cage towards our thighs to help stretch the back body. Now this is a pose that you can do also standing with your arms on the back of a chair. Let's take another breath here. Spending some time upside down feels good. Letting the blood surround our brain, just nourishing it. And then we're going to look towards the hands. We're going to roll up on the toes. We're going to walk the feet up to our hands, finding a forward fold. So feet come hip distance apart so that we're stacking our joints here. Our ankles are underneath our knees are underneath our hips. And we bend the knees at least a little bit, maybe even a lot. I'm resting on my thighs right now because my hamstrings aren't warmed up yet. And hands can even rest on the shins or even on the legs if we're feeling really tight. We can release the neck and head here. If we're feeling any pull in the low back, you want to bend the knees a little bit more. And you can just stay here for a few breaths, or maybe on the inhale, you come up to a flat back, getting that nice brace, and exhale, release. Maybe do that a couple or a few times. So completely up to you what you want to do here. Finishing one more breath, whatever we're doing, wherever we are. And then we're all going to come up to that flat back. So hands above or below the knees, getting that nice brace. Knees are soft here. And then we're going to bend the knees even more, bring palms to heart center, come to our chair. And then inhale, use the exhale to just stand tall. Release the arms, find mountain pose. I'm just going to turn to face you guys. So that was called walking up the mountain. It's a nice safe way for the back to come up to our mountain pose. So in mountain pose, we want to spread the toes. We want to ground the feet. Again, create that space. We do that zipper up. We draw shoulders down. We lift up through the chin, through the crown of the head. A little bit of dynamic tension in the arms. And we're just going to get a little bit of warmth going in the body. So we're going to inhale, bring the arms up. Exhale, bring them down. We're going to bend the knees. So this is called our flowing chair. And again, you can see I have my joints stacked. My ankles underneath my knees underneath my hips are pretty close to it. That's keeping my joints safe. I'm tipping forward from the hip here, so I especially want to make sure that I'm bracing. I've got that zipper done up to support my spine. If that's uncomfortable, having the arms flowing like this, maybe the shoulders are a little bit cranky, we can keep palms together at heart center and just push them up and down, or just leave them at heart center. So we call that, again, yogi's choice. Just flowing with our breath. So starting to warm up big muscles a little bit. Let's just finish one more here. And then find that mountain pose again. Pause there. Notice how tall you feel. Notice how strong you feel, like a mountain, immovable. Reconnect to your breath. Find that 3-part breath. Take 2 or 3 here. Jaw soft. Cheekbones are soft. Finish out a breath here. And then if you're not already there, let's find the top of our mat and reset. Feet hip distance apart. Find that mountain pose. Again, just check in, ground yourself, spread your toes, check in with that belly brace. We do that zipper up. Pause here. And then as we breathe, let's bring our hands to our hips. So noticing where those hip bones are, square to the front of our mat. And all we're going to do is on an exhale, take our right leg, step it back a little bit. Keep the heel lifted. So it's going to be a high lunge, maybe with a little bit of a short stance. Hips are facing the front, so they're squaring off the hips. That's going to keep our back safe, as well as doing up our zipper. And we just want to be tall here. So hands can stay on hips. They can come to heart. We can lift them up if we like. And then maybe we start to sink a little bit in the knees. If we want to make this a little more challenging, the lower we go, the harder it's going to be on the legs. And then just take another breath. I'm breathing on purpose so you can hear me. And then if hands aren't already there, bring them to hips and just step back in. And then just same thing on the other side. So we keep the feet hip distance as we step back. The left leg steps back this time. It's a little bit of a shorter stance. We bend the knees. Both knees are soft. Hips are square. Hands can migrate to chest or up above us. And breathe. Zipper's done up. Shoulders are down. Maybe we sink a little bit. Finish one more breath here. Pressing the feet down. They're your connection to the ground, to the earth. And then hands come to hips if they're not already there. Exhale to step forward, feet hip distance. So again, we're going to step back, right leg. We're going to do that again on each side. Just a high lunge, hands wherever we like, checking with our brace, starting to bend the knees maybe a little bit more, drawing shoulders down, gaze is soft. Maybe focusing on staring at something in particular that helps to focus our minds. It's called our dristi. Hands come to hips with our next exhale. Again, we step forward, feet hip distance, and changing sides on the exhale again. Finding that lunge, finding that spot, doing our zipper up, creating space. Breathing here. Maybe we sink just a little bit. Hands migrate to hips. With our next exhale, we step forward, again, feet hip distance. And let's just take a moment and find our chair again. So we start to bend the knees, make sure that zipper's done up. Palms can come to heart center here, drawing shoulders down. So we're nice and long, right from the crown of the head to the tailbone. And then inhale. Use the exhale to push up to standing. Bring hands to hips again. With our next exhale, we take the right leg back. Maybe a little bit further this time because we're going to drop the heel down on the floor and we're going to start to find our warrior one position. So in warrior one, in all our warrior poses where we're standing, you want that back foot about 45-degree angle on the floor. We want to press the pinky edge of the foot down, and this leg is our supporting leg. So we want it to be strong. So we want to squeeze the glute and press that foot down firmly. Front knee is bent, and if I look past the inside of my knee, I should see my big toe. Now in warrior one, we're still facing the front of our mat, and we just turn the shoulders as far as our body will allow us to. And then palms can come to heart center. If we like, we can lift the arms up. And I want you to focus on the feet and work your way up. So the feet are grounding us. I want you to press them into the mat, spread your toes a little bit. Legs are strong. So if that back knee is starting to bend and the pinky edge of your foot is starting to lift, we're not supported. That can put some pressure on the knee joint. We want to really press that pinky toe edge down. Squeeze the thigh, squeeze the glute. Be strong here. Zippers done up, protecting our back here, never forcing the hips to move more than is comfortable here. And again, hands can be at heart. If we have them up and they get tired, we can always bring them down. It's a strong pose for the legs. And the further apart the legs get, the more challenging it gets as we start to bend the knee a little bit more. So you're not stuck where you've landed. You can always shorten or lengthen your stance here. Let's take one more breath. And then with an exhale, just step forward, feet come hip distance apart again. Pause, and we're just gonna do the same thing on side 2. So keeping the feet about hip distance apart, stepping the left leg back this time, dropping our heel down, and I'm just gonna turn around so that I can still see you guys, or that you can see me, and take the time to set it up. So we wanna make sure our knee is over top of our ankle joint, so if we see our big toe, that typically tells us it's over top of our ankle. It helps to look in a mirror to make sure that we're not pushing the knee past the toe line. So if we've ended up in this kind of position, you can see my knee is putting a lot of pressure on my knee by having it here. It's pushing past the toe line. So I just want to step out a little bit to make sure that that ankle's underneath the knee or even slightly ahead of it to keep the knee joint safe. And again, that back leg is my supporting leg. I want to squeeze the glute, press the pinky edge down, and then shoulders just turn as far as our body lets them, never forcing, and we breathe here. And again, we can make it more challenging by sinking a little bit more, taking the legs even wider to sink down a bit. Find your breath, find your belly brace. Hands can be up, hands can be down. We can even keep hands on the hips here, just turning the shoulders so they're gonna be not quite square. Still letting the breath flow here. So legs are strong in our warrior poses. This is great strengthening for our legs. We're getting some strength, some stretch. Lots going on. Let's finish a breath. And again, with our next exhale, step forward, feet hip distance, find our chair. Breathe. Now I'm just gonna get you to hold your chair for a few breaths here while I talk. So those warrior poses that we just did, you can also do those with a chair in front of you or to the side in front of you, so you have a little bit of something to hold on to for balance. You can also do those poses sitting on a chair, so your seat would be on the seat of the chair, and you just have your legs spread like this on either side of the chair. So that's something, if you want to explore that, you can explore that as well. So I'm not going to hold you in chair much longer. Let's use our exhale to stand up. And let's find that flow again. Let's kind of flush it out. Inhale, exhale, release. Hips going down and back, so we want to brace. Let's finish out one more. This time we're going to meet reaching up tall. Getting as tall as we can. Reaching through fingertips, creating space between the ribs. And then just letting the arms float down by our side. Good. Hip distance. Checking in, hands on hips, we brace. Let's take the left leg back first this time. Drop that heel, so that warrior stance. But this time we're gonna come to warrior 2. So we're gonna turn the body so the shoulders come over top of our hips. We have the same legs. So if we look past the inside of the knee, we see that big toe. We make sure our knee is over top of our ankle. And that back leg is our supporting leg, so it's long and strong. Squeeze your glute, press the pinky edge of the foot down. Now in a warrior 2, again, we're stacking shoulders over hips. Arms can be long, extended like this, looking to the front of our mat. Or if shoulders get cranky, we can always keep palms at heart center. We keep them just tucked in, we shorten the lever. So let's take a few breaths in our warrior 2. Check in, we got that zipper done up, protecting our spine. Arms are strong here. It's a warrior pose, so we're strong in this position. So we have some dynamic tension happening in the arms. We're pushing long through the arms, fingertips are strong, and we're just gazing over the fingertips. Breathe. And then float hands to hips again. Use an exhale to just push forward. Find our pose with our feet hip distance apart. And we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. So the right leg steps back this time. We drop the heel. Remember, we're not stuck where we've landed. If we need to adjust, we can take the foot in a little bit further. We can take the foot in a little bit back. We can change the position of our ankle. Again, we want to bend the knee, look for the big toe, stabilize with that back leg, shoulders over hips. You're looking at the back of me now. Arms nice and long. Just gazing over the front fingers and breathe. And again, we can tuck the hands in so palms are at heart center. Shoulders are starting to get a little cranky, or if we're recovering from an injury perhaps. Let the breath just flow here. If we want to make it more challenging, we sink a little bit. Maybe we have to scooch the feet a little further apart. Breathe. Let's finish a breath here. And then again, float hands to hips. With an exhale, like step forward, hip distance. Release the hands, find mountain pose. Spread the toes. Let's ground ourselves here. Take a nice big breath. And then bringing hands to hips, finding our brace again. We're going to step back as we exhale with the left leg. We're going to drop that heel down. We're going to turn the shoulders. And we're going to find that warrior two again. Now, you might want to have an egg or a block close by. I'm just going to grab mine. And just have it to the inside of your foot. So feel free if you need to get up and grab it to do that now. We're going to come to triangle pose. So we establish our base in our warrior two first. And then for triangle, we're going to straighten that front leg, making sure there's a little bit of softness to the knee, but we're not hyper extending the knee. And we just want to shift forward, and then we're going to tip so the hand can come to the shin. It can even come above the knee, never pressing on the knee joint. Or this is where we can find our blocker egg to help give us a little bit of lift. And you can even get a bit of traction because you can push against it and open up. Now this is actually a twist. I'm twisting my torso here. So I want to make sure that that shoulder is open, the chest is open, top arm can be up, or it can come to the low back or hip. Again, if we're taking care of shoulders here, we want to make sure that there's, again, that softness in the knee, and we breathe here. Now, if we want to feel more of that rotation, squeeze the ribs facing the ground and see if you can just open up a little bit more. Now, if we find that we're leaning forward, if we're in this position and we're kind of like this, leaning forward, we're not rotating, we're not opening up. This is putting some pressure on the arm, maybe even on the back. So what we want to do is pull back. So instead of having our hand this low, we slide the hand up a little bit or even above the knee until we're able to open up and find that rotation. And then the more we do it, the more we find that rotation, then we're able to get a little deeper if we like. So we listen to our body here. A good way to practice this, take a couple more breaths here while I just show you, is against the wall. So if we want to see if we're opening, we just open up against a wall to see if that shoulder's coming close to or touching the wall. All right? Finish your breath here. And then start to soften the knee. Make your way back to warrior two. Breathe. And then lower the arms. Turn the toes so they're about 45-ish degrees, and you might need to move that blocker egg out of the way. That's okay. So we want to make sure the legs are wide enough that the knees aren't going to push past the toe line. We can deeply bend them. Inhale, sweep up. Just like our flowing chair, it's now become a wide squat to flow this. And just 4, maybe 5 times here. It's our sunflower flow. And again, at any point in time, hands can stay tucked in, close to our body, and we breathe. Let's finish one more. And then pause. Let's send the arms out. 5-pointed star. Getting a nice stretch. Maybe we look up just a little bit, creating length in the throat. Strong fingers, dynamic tension. Belly's braced. Feet are strong. Knees are soft. One more breath. And then float the hands down. All we're going to do is turn the feet this time to come to our warrior two on the other side. So the other knee bends. We look for that big toe. Other leg becomes long and strong. Shoulders over hips. Arms lengthen. Take a breath or two here as we just check in with everything. And then we're going to find our triangle on this side. So we're going to straighten that front leg. We're going to shift forward. Hand comes above or below the knee to that block or to the egg if you want to grab it or have it close by. And we open up. And you might get to a different place on each side. It's just going to depend on how our shoulders are, how our ribs rotate, maybe which side we're side bent on. Arm can be up, arm can be at low back, hand can be on hip. Yogi's choice. If we look up, we do challenge our balance a little bit. So we really want to make sure we're pressing down on those feet, legs are strong, even though knees are soft. Maybe squeezing the ribs on the bottom to try to open up a little bit more. Just let the breath flow. Just a couple more breaths here. As we finish our last breath, we start to bend the knee, just move blocker egg out of the way, draw ourselves back up to warrior two. And then float the hands to hips. Again, we're just going to turn the feet so they're about 45 degrees. They're facing maybe the wide corners of your mat. We tuck in with that belly brace, and just again, 4 or 5 times our sunflower flow. Jaw soft. Finish out one more. Again, we're going to meet in our 5-pointed star, reaching up nice and tall. Knees are soft here. Press down on the feet. Look up a little bit if that's comfortable. If we feel like we're a little wobbly, just bring your gaze down and find a spot to stare at. And then float the arms down. Let's just walk the feet a little bit closer together. We're going to come into some balance. So starting again, feet hip distance apart, we stack those joints. I like to start with my hands on my hips, and then they tend to migrate other places, but I find I stabilize a little bit better with my hands on my hips to start. So we're going to take one foot, doesn't matter because we're going to do both sides, and we're going to turn the toes out to the side. So that knee is pointing out to the side. And then we're going to pick up our heel, we're going to bring that foot in so the heel comes just above the ankle joint. And this is our modified tree. So if we find our balance is a little bit off and we need a little bit of touch, we have our feet still connected to the earth, grounding us. Now you can also do this with a chair in front so you can hold on to it, or a light touch on the wall beside you perhaps, until we work our balance so that we can do it without hands touching anything. Hands can also come to heart center here, or we can send the arms up like branches of a tree. Now to come to modified tree pose, all we do is slide the foot up a little bit so it comes below the knee joint. So as a reminder, we never press directly on the knee joints. And we breathe here. And again, you can have that light touch on a chair, on the wall. Our core plays a big part in our balance, so we want to make sure we're stabilizing the core. We got that zipper done up. And then just let the breath flow here. I'm not going to take you to a full tree because this is a beginner class or a gentle class. Full tree would have the foot above the knee. Let's press the palms together or send the arms up. 2 more breaths here. And then after that last breath, we just float the arms down. We release the legs. If you feel like you need to shake out that foot that we were standing on, feel free to shake it out. We're building ankle strength at the same time. And then we're just going to change sides. So we start again, feet hip distance apart, turn the other toes this time out to the side. We drag that heel in so it comes above the ankle bone, that big bone there. And again, we can stay right here, just a little connection with Mother Earth. Hands can be at heart. They can stay on our hips. We can lift them up like branches. Or we can start to bring that foot up above the ankle joint but below the knee joint. And breathe here. You might notice that your ankle joint is a little bit wobbly. That's okay. So you're working the joint. You're making it stronger. If it's uncomfortable, if we have any ankle issues, just bring the foot back down. Or, again, have a light touch on a chair or on the wall beside you. Breathe. Brace. So again, find a spot to stare at that's not moving. It's your drishti, your focal point. It helps you balance. If palms are pressing together, feel the heat and energy between the hands. Otherwise, we can extend our branches just for a couple more breaths. After our next breath, we release the arms. Release the leg gently. Again, if we need movement in that supporting leg, maybe we need to shake out the ankle, wiggle the toes, whatever we need to do, let's do it. And then let's find the top of our mat again if we're not already there. So we're going to make our way down to the floor. So you might, if you want to sit, you might want to have your chair ready. You might want to have a blanket to sit on, other props as discussed if we need them. Take a moment in your mountain pose. Just another breath here. Noticing the feet, noticing the length we've created. And then bringing palms to heart center, we're going to lower the hips, find our chair, brace here. Just gazing forward. And then with our next exhale, we're going to fold so hands can come to thigh. They can come to shins. We can hang here, again, knees bent at least a little bit, maybe a lot. We can release the head. We can shake and nod. Take a couple breaths here. Again, if we're feeling pull in the low back, we want to bend the knees a little bit more. Last breath here. And then we're going to soften our knees. Allow our hands to come down, and we're going to walk our feet back to downward facing dog. Spreading the fingers, pressing the whole palm down. Let's push against the floor. You're going to see my hips shift back, my back lengthen, my elbows are going to soften, my heels press down. Now I find that pressing the heels down with my legs that straight, hard on my knee joint, and it's a little too much of a stretch for my calves, so I'm just going to bend my knees a little bit. And then think about bringing my ribs towards my thighs. And you'll notice my hips are able to shift back a little bit more. I got a little more stretch in the back there. Head's just framed between the arms. Another breath or two here. We should spend some time upside down every day. Did you know that it prevents wrinkles? And then with our next inhale, we're going to lower to the knees. We're going to find that resting pose or puppy dog pose again. So remember, you can take the knees wider. You can stack the fists, stack the hands. You can rock. You can keep the arms long if you like. Allow your breath to just flow here. Finding expansion in the back. Let's finish one more breath here. Take the arms out as far as they'll go again. And then we start to pick up the head with our next breath. We shift forward, come through our kneeling plank, elbows tuck in. We lower all the way down. We're going to find a low or high cobra this time. So last time we did that sphinx on our forearms. This time hands stay underneath our back. We scooch, we find some space. We can stay in a low cobra or we can come up to a higher cobra. So we're pushing against the floor. Elbows are softening, so they're not locked. And we want to make sure that we're not falling into our shoulder girdle right now, which is what I'm doing right now. So we want to be able to push to draw out of the shoulder girdle there. And if we're not able to do that, then I recommend that you just stay with that nice low cobra. Let's take one more breath where we ended up. Nice back bend. And then with our next inhale, we release. Exhale, push back to resting pose. Just a breath or two here. And then with our next breath, we're just going to walk ourselves up, and we're going to scooch our feet out in front to find a seated position. And again, if you want to sit on a blanket or folded up towel to lift the hips, feel free to do that. We're going to send the legs out long. So we're going to find those sits bones, and this is where you might want to use a strap or a belt, just to find some length. So with the legs nice and long, we want to find that spot below the belly button, draw it up. You'll notice you immediately sit taller. We're supporting our spine here. And then I always recommend starting with the strap. We bring it around the bottoms of the feet, and you just want to make sure it's high up on the feet, that it's not right in the middle of the arch, just to take care of nerve endings in our feet. So keeping the back nice and tall, pretending like we have a book on the top of our head, we're just going to exhale and just gently start to fold. And just until you feel that pull in the backs of your legs, which might not be very far. Again, the knees are soft here. It doesn't matter if you've pulled your feet close together, if they stayed separate. And then just making sure we're still drawing in, using an exhale to deepen that stretch. So what we want to avoid doing here is rounding the back. I often see people in class rounding the back because they feel like they have to reach their toes. And this is not about reaching your toes, this pose. It's about stretching the backs of your legs and keeping your back safe while doing it. So you notice if you bend over and try to reach for the toes, you're going to feel pressure in the back. So if you pull back and stay lifted and long, and we draw in, we got that zipper done up, you'll feel the stretch more where it's meant to be felt, and that's in the back of our legs. And that's why I like the strap. It kind of keeps us a little more upright. And we might be able to, as we breathe, make our way to the toes, but take our time to do it. especially with hamstrings, when hamstrings tend to be tight on a lot of us, it takes a little bit for the brain and the body to figure out what we're doing. So immediately the brain wants us to contract those muscles because it's afraid we're going to hurt ourselves. We want the muscles to release so we can stretch them. So if you breathe, eventually the brain says, oh, that's what you're doing. And it allows them to release so you can get a little bit deeper. So now that we've talked a long time while we're here, let's take another breath, maybe two. And then when we're ready, gently starting to ease back up, nice and tall, we can just put that strap off to the side. And we're going to bring the bottoms of our feet together. And I recommend not bringing the heels in any closer than the length of our foot to our body. And that just keeps, again, it's all about stacking the joints and keeping our joints safe. If this is uncomfortable for inner thighs, we can always have that little bit of lift with our blocks or our eggs or a couple books or some rolled up blankets, whatever we need if we need those there. And again, same thing as that fold. We want to draw in, support our spine, and then if we want to fold here, we can. And we shouldn't be feeling it in the back. So if we're feeling in the back, we're likely rounding, we're likely not supporting our spine. So we want to check back in with all those pieces and just stay lifted and tall and use the breath. Let the brain catch up. Use the breath to help you get a little deeper. And you can also use blocks or eggs to have on the floor in front of you to rest your hands on. So as we start to move forward, we have that little bit of support. Maybe we have them stacked in front of us. So you can play with where the props are. Let them assist you in keeping that stretch where it's meant to be felt and keeping it safe as well. So continuing to breathe here, drawing shoulders down, neck is nice and long. Never forcing, listening to the body. Last breath here. And then we're gently going to come back up. Come to whatever seated position is comfortable to you in this moment. Again, you can be doing this sitting on a chair as well. I typically like crisscross applesauce. You can keep the legs straight here if you like. We're just going to do a little bit of a seated twist. So again, we want to draw in, do that zipper up, create space. So we're putting the pelvis in a neutral position, draw shoulders down. With an inhale, we're going to lengthen, taking in that breath, creating a little more space. And then exhale, we're going to twist to one side and just keep it small to start. Hands can just rest on the outside of the leg. As we exhale, maybe one arm comes to the floor. As we continue to breathe, maybe we turn the shoulders a little bit more. And again, still as we continue to breathe, maybe we turn the head and neck a little bit more. So we ease into it. We kind of take little steps so that we're not just forcing our body into a twist. We're gentle with ourselves. We give ourselves time to kind of catch up with what we're doing. And once we get here, we can continue to deepen it just by using the exhale. And maybe we gently push against that knee. Again, never forcing, listening to our body. Letting the breath flow here. Sometimes when we twist or we bend, we have a tendency to hold our breath. And what that does is it tells our body that we're in distress, and then it contracts our muscles so that we can't stretch and release them, which is the opposite of what we want to be doing. So we want to let that breath flow so we can continue to release. Finding space perhaps where we didn't have space before. Maybe getting movement where we didn't have movement before. With our next inhale, let's come back to center. And then just pause here for a breath or two, just checking in with our brace, finding our tallest selves. And then with our next inhale again, we create that space, we lengthen, and exhale, we twist to the other side this time. So again, starting small, letting the rib cage move, and then maybe it moves a little bit more, maybe the shoulders move. Then maybe we turn the head and neck, looking over the shoulder. Again, continuing to breathe here. Maybe the hand gently pushes against the leg or the knee, just to get a little bit of traction, to get a little deeper into that stretch. And maybe not today. And maybe one side is different than the other. We listen to our body and honor it. Jaw is soft, cheekbones are soft. Maybe we've closed our eyes. Just breathe here, breathe into that twist. Twists can help wring out our insides. So if we need help with some digestion or if we're trying to move stuff through, twists are great for assisting with that. So let's finish a breath here. Come back to the center and then just pause and check in. So I'm going to take you to one more pose, lying on our back, which is bridge pose. You can use a blanket if you like underneath you, just to support your body if you want a little more comfort. And then we're going to move into final relaxation, which I'm not really going to talk you through, but I'm going to set you up for it, and then you can set a timer and be in it as long as you want, just to nourish yourself and to have some rest and some time just for you. So to get into our bridge pose, we're just going to bend the knees, and we're going to bring the upper body onto the floor with the knees bent, and you can gently roll yourself down with your hands underneath the legs. So coming to bridge, we want to again stack the joints. So we walk the feet in just a little bit so our ankles are about underneath our knees. It's hard to see, I know. And you want to make sure the feet are about hip distance apart, maybe even a little bit wider. Hands by our side with the palms down. So just notice where your feet are connected to the floor, where your back is connected to the floor, your head's connected to the floor too. And we're going to take an inhale, and we're going to use the exhale to push and lift against gravity. So we're creating space underneath us. We're making a bridge with our body so that something can travel beneath us, perhaps, if you like that visual. And then just keeping the palms or the hands light on the floor, we're pressing evenly with the feet. The back is connected to the floor, head's connected to the floor, just creating space. So we're engaging posterior chain, which is the back body here. And then we're finding openness in the front body. So making sure we're still looking at the ceiling. We want to keep the neck safe. So just listen to my voice. You don't have to turn the head. Jaws soft. Breathe here. Spread your toes. Press both feet. Maybe lift the hips a little bit more. We're just here for 2 more breaths. And again, this is a version of an inversion. That was hard to say. Because we're sending blood from the lower extremities more into the upper extremities. So just finishing a breath here. And then we're just going to lower down. Take your time. Be gentle. And then you can just keep the knees bent here. You can rock perhaps in windshield wipe, or you can hug your knees into your chest here. Maybe we rock side to side. It's a little massage for your back. It feels delightful. You can make some circles with the knees. I like that even better. Going both directions a few times. So this is the end of the flowing postures, the moving postures. And I invite you to come into final relaxation, also known as Shavasana, which is traditionally done with legs extended and arms by our side. You can use support to have underneath your hips or underneath your knees. If you want to take pressure off the low back, it's nice to have the knees lifted a little bit. If that's uncomfortable, you can do this with the knees bent in constructive rest. And if we do have any lower back issues, it's kind of nice to walk the feet wide and then let the legs rest against each other. So you're taking some pressure off the low back here. So get into a position where you're comfortable, and I recommend setting a timer if you can. 2 minutes, 3 minutes to start, building up to 5 minutes, even 10 minutes. And then allow yourself to just be. Now, if you're doing this on your own and you want to take the time to spend some time in Shavasana, I do recommend putting on your socks, putting on a sweater, maybe wrapping a blanket around you. You want to be warm here. You don't want to start to cool off. And then just let the jaw soften, cheekbones soften. Let yourself rest against the floor completely. So let's take a few breaths. Inhale through nose. And as we exhale through the mouth, think about releasing and sinking a little heavier towards the floor. Just let the fingers curl naturally. Let the legs just kind of splay out to the sides. Let the feet rest. If you have an eye pillow at all, or you want to get one, it's nice to have an eye pillow here. It just puts a little bit of pressure on the eyes, and it actually takes us into our rest and digest system, the parasympathetic nervous system. If you have a nice lavender scent in your eye pillow, lavender is very calming. So continue to breathe here. Find that 3-part breath again, in through nose. We feel the low part of the ribs expand, upper ribs, moving into the chest, and then we release. So I'm just going to finish out here with maybe 4 or 5 of my own breaths here, but I invite you to continue on. Like I said, use a timer, stay here as long as you like, especially if you're hiding from family right now. Take advantage of that. And as we continue to breathe here, I just thank you for joining me today. my light and my love shines out to all of you. Namaste.